These are the speaker tapes of Fifth Dimension Young People's Group Alcoholics Anonymous, a virtual group meeting every night at 9:30 Eastern, 6:30 Pacific. Enjoy.
Hi, I'm Kai. I'm an alcoholic. Thanks so much for asking me to speak, Moses. I feel like you're here somewhere, but I can't see you. I'm happy to be here. I've never been to this meeting before. It's my first time. Y'all seem like you have a lovely little fellowship going on. My sobriety date is November 18th of 2022. So next week I'll have 5 months. Thank you. I'm in Brooklyn, New York. That's why there's so many sirens in the background. You'll hear them periodically. I have a sponsor and he has a sponsor. I have 2 home groups. I have 4 service positions, and a lot of them are stacking chairs. But what else would we hold on to if there were no chairs, you know? So a little bit about me. I live in Brooklyn. I've lived here for about 6 years or so. I'm 23 years old, but I grew up in Boston or outside of Boston. And I've always had an abnormal relationship with alcohol. Should I be timing myself? I'm going to time myself. I grew up in an alcoholic household. My father's an alcoholic. It was a pretty violent home. And I had my first drink when I was 12 years old. I had my first drunk when I was 12 years old. And I blacked out that night, the first of many. It was basically like that from the jump. Basically from then on, I drank as much as I could whenever I could. Even when I didn't have a lot of access to alcohol, I would, make it work. And I thank God I didn't have that much access for a long time, because I might be a lot younger right now sitting here talking to you. I was basically an everyday weed smoker from like 14 on. And I just, like a lot of alcoholics you'll hear, like just didn't want to be in my body. I always felt that I was different. For me, it's like everyone has that thing. Like I heard a girl say like she was the only brunette in a family of blondes, and that was like the thing that made her different. For me, it was like being trans, being poorer than like the people that I grew up with and like my socioeconomic background. I never wanted to be in my body. I was deeply uncomfortable, deeply depressed, and just wanted to escape. It's always been what it was for me. And alcohol allowed me to do that, and do pretty well for a long time. And I think things really hit a turning point for me during the pandemic. I turned 21 in the summer of 2020. So it was like the height of pandemic. So it was the first time ever I had unlimited access to alcohol. And I had no job. I was getting unemployment, so I was making more money than I ever had in my life. And I had nothing to do. So I drank all day, and was basically an everyday drinker from then on. Towards the end of my drinking, I drank as soon as I woke up. I drank. I didn't. It's funny. I hear people say like, now I get to like wake up and go to sleep. Before I only like passed out and came to. And that was like my life. It was just all day, every day, getting as fucked up as possible. I was basically never sober for a year plus. I was working in the restaurant industry, so I was working late nights, unlimited access to alcohol, just drinking all day. Like it just was what it was. And it got really, really deeply unmanageable, where I was blacking out before I left work. Sometimes before I even went into work. I'm going into work in a blackout. It's not a good look. And like coming to in random like sketchy train stations in Brooklyn, no idea where I am, covered in my own piss, like just can't get it together. And it, I knew that was becoming a problem. Like my dad, like I said, was an alcoholic, but I had this image of an alcoholic as like this older guy who like beats his wife and kids and like drinks whiskey. He's like so dramatic, And I thought like, oh, I'm not hurting anyone other than myself, so it doesn't really matter, which was just not true. I did my fifth step, like it wasn't true. I was hurting other people as well, but that was like what kept me in the denial for a long time. And so in September, I tried AA for the first time. And I was sober for like 40 days. It was like 40 days of AA. And it didn't prove to me that like it works if you work it, but it proved to me that it definitely doesn't work if you don't work it. I did not have a sponsor. I went to like 2 meetings a week. I didn't stay for fellowship. If people asked me for my phone number, I would give it to them. But if they called me, I would not answer. I thought it was really weird. I was like, don't call me. Um, and basically all it left me with was like the knowledge that I had a problem. Like I learned about the first drink and the insanity and the powerlessness, but I didn't have a solution because I wasn't working the steps and I wasn't doing the actual program. So after 40 days, I went out and it was like immediately right back, like as if I had been drinking the whole time. It was like worse than it had ever been. And I was so hopeless because like I would be like, okay, I'm just gonna moderate. I'm gonna do it. And I'd have one drink. And then when like a half an hour later I'd had 4 or 5, I'd be like, Bill Wilson, like what did you do to me? Like I can see it now. And I still can't stop no matter what. And I was so like profoundly hopeless. At the end of October, I tried to kill myself by mixing alcohol and benzos because I just like couldn't do it. I couldn't manage it, and I had no hope at all. And it like yeah, and all kind of my bottom, if I had to like put it into a day, would be like my like longtime partner who I live with came home and like found me face first on the ground, just like unconscious. And like the next day, my friends like threw an intervention for me. They're like, "You're going to AA, we're going to Al-Anon, and then we're gonna have dinner." And it was like so dramatic and very New York, like very efficient. Um, and so I stopped drinking that day, and I immediately went into withdrawal. Um, I didn't have health insurance or anyone to pay my rent, so I didn't go to detox. I detoxed in my bathtub, basically. And I was shaking and crying and shitting and just a nightmare. For about 10 days, I was so sick and I was going to work. People were like, dude, what's wrong with you? Like, stay away from me. I'm like, I just have the flu, but it's like not contagious. Like, don't worry. Like, it's fine. It was awful. But when I think about like insanity, I think about this, which is the 10 days after that intervention, I drank again. And I couldn't even tell you why. There was no fight. There was no like trigger. There was nothing that happened where I was like, I'm going to drink. Like I just found myself with a drink in my hand and I had it. And then I was drunk the next 3 days in a row. And I was like, what have I done? Like, how could you forget like the emotional toll of what you just like put everyone through and put yourself through? Like, and the physical pain alone, like how could you forget about that? And it's just that insanity. And then, I managed to like drag myself to a meeting and someone who was there recognized me from before my relapse and was like, hey buddy, like how's it going? I was like, it's not going so well. And they dragged me to a different meeting the next day and thus my 90 and 90 began. And I didn't miss a meeting for 90 days. And I knew then that like I had to do the program. Like I had to, because I knew I didn't really have a choice. I could either like commit the ultimate selfish act of like ruining the lives of the people who care about me, or I could like put my heart and soul into this. And people say like, don't do this for other people, do it for you. But like that wasn't possible for me in the beginning because I just didn't give a shit about myself. So I came in for other people, but I stayed for me because, in the beginning, it was really fellowship that was like keeping me around. Like every meeting we stay at the diner afterwards and have pancakes and like sit and laugh with people and be like, I'm laughing and I'm sober and I'm laughing and I'm sober and what's happening? Just like this totally like weird, surreal thing that I was so not accustomed to. And I remember being on the phone with someone because I started answering the phone calls and like she's gonna hang up. She's like, oh, okay, I gotta go now, Kai. Like, bye, I love you. And I was like, I love you too. Like I was so shocked. I was like, you love me? Like you don't even know me. I'm an alcoholic. Don't you know that I'm an alcoholic? Like, I'm a piece of shit. Like, I was so shocked by it. Like, I had no love for myself at all. But when I started working the steps is really when I was like, this is the real shit. Like, I love the steps. Like, they make me very happy. I did my step 5 like a few weeks ago. Life-changing experience. How much time do I have? Okay. So I guess I'll go through all the steps a little bit. But like, for me, like step 1, I struggled with it because I was like, yeah, I can see the powerlessness. I see I don't have any control here. But the word unmanageability really stuck in my head because I was like, this is the only way I know how to manage. Like, this is how I manage my mental illness. Like, this is how I manage my life, is by drinking. Like, I can't function without it. This is my manageability. Um, and it took like some long list making with my sponsor to be like, okay, maybe I'm doing a really bad job. Like, if this is me managing, I'm doing a really shit job, which was true. Um, and step two, I feel like I worked every step on the level of like group of drunks, and then as like the layer of like higher power, like starting with the group, allowing the group, like coming to believe that the group could help, that AA itself could help, was the start of step two. Because I saw people with worse stories than me with like a lot of time, and like I saw how happy they were. Like, I experienced it at fellowship to see like the light in their eyes, and like to know they'd come from where I'd come from and that they'd made it. And then I came to believe that like there was something bigger, like that it wasn't just the group, but like they all believed in something that was bigger than that, and that was pulling them through. And I started to buy into that. I didn't come in as an atheist, but I always saw God as a sort of like water to a fish, like just this like fabric that didn't really have any specific care for me or care for anyone. It was just this thing that is, and is just like a flowing river where it's just rushing by us and it just does whatever it wants. And because I had no love for myself, I couldn't really believe that God actually cared for me. Like, I would be like, yeah, sure, maybe like God cares about these other people, but not me, simply not me. And it took a lot of like humbling from my sponsor to be like, you're not fucking special. Like, there are people in here who've done heinous things, and you're just like some kid. Like, it's okay. Like, God definitely cares about you. Like, you're really not that special to be like particularly hated by God. And for me, step three was like, okay, I can see the rushing river now of God going around me, of this like current, but I'm still just like clutching to this rock in the middle of the river. Like, I can't trust that if I let go, that everything is going to be okay, because this is just, I've just been clinging to this rock for 22 years. And if I let go, like, I don't know what's going to happen. And it's very much an everyday thing. It's like, we made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood God. And making a decision doesn't mean that we do it. That's like an important decision. Like, we decide to do it. My sponsor will say, like, there's 3 frogs sitting on a log. And one decides to jump off. How many frogs are on the log? It's 3, because making a decision doesn't mean you're actually doing it. And like, the actual practice of letting go and turning it over is a practice. So for step 3, it's really just being like, okay, I'm willing to think about maybe getting off this rock. But it's been such a relief in like so many circumstances. Like, I grew up very poor, and now I'm dealing with like a lot of financial insecurity in my life, and the way that I approach it is just completely different. Like, I've been able to like turn over things I never thought I would be able to like not like white knuckle my way through. And it's honestly such a relief. I was shit at running the show, and I'm happy to not do it. And step 4 was really a lot for me, as I know it is for a lot of people. It brought a lot to the surface. There's like, if you're here, you probably have a lot of trauma. I'm just going to put that out there. And like, for me and for people I've talked with, I never wanted to drink more than when I was doing step 4, because it brings all the things that like you're pushing down, and all the things that like they say in the book, like resentment is like the #1 killer of alcoholics. And just to like lay it all bare is like, it's very scary. And it's an important time to like stay close. Like, I was calling people, I call like 2 to 3 people every day. Someone who I think could benefit from talking to me, someone who I think I could benefit from talking to, and then someone who maybe it's an opposite action for me to call, where I don't really feel like doing it. But like, when I was doing step 4, I'm just calling people and talking about specific resentments against my father, like dealing with abuse, dealing with assault, like things that like are really hard to like deal with, and just getting advice, like just turning it over to the group. I don't know how to do this on my own, and that's been one of the most beautiful things, is just being able to say, I don't know how to do this. I can't do this on my own. That's not something I could ever do. If I'm going to get like brutally honest, this weekend was really hard for me, and I was really struggling with like some deep depression, and I was like scared I was going to relapse. And I went to my home group on Saturday, and I took the burning desire, which is not something I ever do. And I just said, help me. Like, I am in so much pain, and I don't know what to do, and I just need help. And that's not something I would ever have been able to do before. And like after the meeting, people coming up to me like, hey, I'm in pain too. Like, let's go get some food. Like, I'm here for you. Can I help you with this? Can I help you with this? And like, it doesn't take the pain away, but just to know that I'm not carrying it all on my own and I'm not doing it by myself is just like, what a relief that is. And I was speaking to one of my friends today who was part of my intervention team, and they were like checking in on me because they knew I had a hard weekend. And they were just like, I just want to say what a relief it is for me as your friend to not be worried that you're hiding how you're feeling from me. Like, I feel confident now that if you're doing bad, that you're going to tell me. And that's not something I ever could have done. And that's like kind of the magic of 6 and 7 for me, is like people pleasing is a huge problem for me. And when I people please, I rob the people I love of the ability to be close with me and to like love me and be vulnerable with me and actually know who I am. And then I just explode too. If I hold in how I feel, it just gets a lot fucking worse, because I can't handle it on my own. And that's my favorite thing about AA is I don't have to do anything alone. I feel way less lonely than I ever have in my life. I was such a lonely kid. I've been lonely so long, and this is like the first time ever I don't feel that way on like on a physical level of people, and also on a spiritual level, like that I feel like I'm being cared for. Like I've had moments of peace where I kind of see myself as this little kid. I don't know if anyone's ever read the BFG, like the Big Friendly Giant, that book, but I just sometimes when I feel God like really in me, I just feel like this child is sitting in the palm of a giant. Like I'm just held and I'm cared for, and it's going to be a fucking rocky road and it's scary, but like I have this bigger thing looking out for me, and I've never felt like that in my whole life. And it's because of this program, and it's because of working the steps. And I wouldn't have a life without it. I wouldn't have a life that was worth living, certainly. And I'm just so blessed to be here. I'm so grateful for all of you. And thank you to everyone who's doing service. And I'm excited to hear from you. Thank you.
Thank you, Kai. Appreciate you.